Right. Good evening. Good evening. Welcome to our Go to High School, Go to College program on finding scholarships. My name is Darwin Shaw, and I serve as the Director of Educational Activities for what I believe is the absolute best chapter, Alpha Sigma Lambda, of the absolute best fraternity, Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, located in Dallas, Texas. This evening's presentation is a part of our fraternity's Go to High School, Go to College program that began in 1922. In 1922, Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated established Go to High School, Go to College to stress the importance of completing both a secondary and a collegiate education and seeing it as a road to advancement. Tonight's program is to provide tips on how to make college more affordable. So on behalf of Alpha Sigma Lambda's chapter of Phi Alpha, we thank you for tuning in, and we're hoping that you're getting some benefit, that you will receive some benefit from tonight's presentation. If you're on Facebook, please share to your Facebook friends. Please take the opportunity to share this presentation through Facebook. And tonight we have our president, Brother Andre Turner, is here. Brother Turner, would you like to have remarks?
Yes, you said it all too well. Good evening, distinguished brothers and distinguished guests. As Brother Shaw put it, that Go to High School, Go to College has been around for a centennial this year. This is the centennial year. After the Roaring Twenties, our four founders felt the need that we need to do a little bit more in the field of education. And that's part of our principle of our fraternity. And how they did that, they went back and to mentor young African American males and encourage them and educate them to matriculate at a high level learning institution. So tonight, be that sponge. These two individuals is going to give you a wealth of knowledge that some things that, probably 40 years ago, if I think it would have helped me if I would have known and had the tools that these guys is going to give you tonight. Brother Brian Robinson, he's going to definitely leave your mouth with awe. Like, I didn't even know that these opportunities was out there for us. But without further ado, I definitely thank you guys for participating. Like Darwin Shaw said, one of the most outstanding chapters west of the Mississippi, Alpha Sigma Lambda. And it's always a pleasure. Like I said, we're part of this golden fraternity, Phi Alpha. Brother Shaw, back to you.
Thank you, Brother Turner. Thank you. Our presenter this evening is a father with two children in college. He and his wife recognize the increasing cost of college, and they put a plan in place that has resulted in both of his children attending college at absolute zero cost to the family. We're fortunate to have Brother Brian Robinson in our chapter, and we're extremely grateful for his willingness to share his family's experience. After the presentation, we will address questions as time will allow. Please feel free to enter your questions in the comment sections. And again, if you're watching on Facebook, press the share button, get the information out there. This presentation will also be maintained on our YouTube channel, Dallas Alphas TV, for later viewing and for reviewing. With no further ado, Brother Robinson, please share the information with us.
Okay, thank you, Brother Shaw and President Turner. It's Brian Robinson of Garland, Texas. Guys, I want to share some important information with you that I discovered over a 3-year journey with my children and getting them into college. 3 years ago, I was just like a lot of you parents of high school seniors and getting my son ready for college. This January of 2022, but in January of 2019, I was in those shoes trying to get ready and thinking about how we were going to pay for college. Now, we had saved some money, and I had a little bit ready for college. And one thing that we found is that even with what we had saved, there still might be a chance that our students might have student loans, and our children might have student loans. And that's something we really just didn't want. My wife and I both had experience with student loans when we were coming out of college. I went to Texas A&M and she went to Baylor. And even as prestigious as those schools are, our student loans in the 90s were a total of about $15,000 to $20,000, which, we were able to pay off at pretty much at our leisure. But what we found is that, in the students are now graduating with tremendous debt. And student loan debt is just choking their ability off to be able to be productive, financially responsible citizens in the future. I had a specific case. A friend of ours was a real estate agent, had sold a house to one of my classmates from Texas A&M, and this gentleman making six figures and a very prestigious job declined for his mortgage because his debt to income ratio was too high. And so that impeded his ability to buy a house in the future. And we did not want that type of situation to happen for our children. And so that lit a match under us. That was probably in the summer before my son's senior year. And we were thinking about it all through the year, but we really didn't do much about it. And so, like a lot of parents, you kind of depend on your children to start moving the ball on that. And, children think you have a little change in your pocket, and they may not be so motivated to get up and act. So that's the situation we found ourselves in about this time 3 years ago. And so what I want to share with you guys tonight is the strategy that my son and I, and then later my daughter, put into place that ultimately resulted in them being able to attend college at no cost. Brother Jackson, can you bring the presentation up? All right. Okay, so finding scholarships and winning. This is a chalk talk that I put together a while back to share with some parents at my students' former high school, and it has been valuable, hugely valued to some students, because some students have already been able to get nice money and full ride scholarships out of this. Tonight we're going to talk about the different types of scholarships that are available to you, and this is not government money. This is just scholarship money that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about merit money, departmental money, outside scholarships. We're going to go into talking about the toolbox, or all the tools that we use to prepare them and to make it easy for us and manage the stress of applying for scholarships. We'll talk about the resume that's necessary, getting your transcripts together, recommendation letters, essays, interviews, the all-important student aid report. And then after that, we're going to talk about where do you find the scholarships? Because that's the title of our program, is where do you find the scholarships? But once you find them, you got to be ready to win them once you get them. We'll talk about how we track the scholarships, and then what our results was. I'll show you the stats and results that came from my children's performance. So getting into it, merit awards. When you start this college journey early in the year, you're going to be eligible for something called merit awards. And these are the awards that the universities use to attract the top students, the people that they really want, the flagship students, the ones that are the national merit scholars, but not just them. Some of the very talented talented students academically, but maybe they didn't win the top awards. They're going to have money available for you. And this is how they show how much they appreciate the work that you put in over the last 18 years. It's usually based on your college application, though. So there's not any extra work that you do for this. They're going to use the college applications. They'll make a ranking of them. The very top students are going to be set aside to receive these merit awards. And then, and the money will kind of will go from the very maximum award that they offer and kind of dwindle down to some people that they just would like to see at the school, but it's not quite as urgent for them to come. This is a parent tip, and was something we found along the way. We found that some schools will advertise what it takes to get their merit awards. And that merit award could be a full ride scholarship, or it could be a partial award. But whatever it is, they'll publish that typically they'll publish it on their website. If not, you want to ask the financial aid departments, how are the merit awards given out? The thing about this is that you need to act early. You need to be doing this really in September of the school year. And I know that doesn't help the seniors right now, but we got juniors and sophomores in here that should be listening also. But this money does run out And so for this academic year, the students applied in September, October, some in November, start getting awards in December. The schools are looking for an answer from the student to say, are you coming in January? And then those that say no, they're going to take that money and they can offer it to other students down the line. Our experience, my daughter's a freshman at North Carolina A&T, and my son is a junior at Prairie View A&M. Both of them full ride scholarships, but the full ride scholarship was great, and we kind of got those at the end. But the journey that we're going to be talking about mostly tonight is the journey to getting enough scholarship to cover the first year, the second year, and the third year iteratively. So an example at North Carolina A&T, they offered most students a one-time $5,000 award to come, which is going to apply toward the $30-something thousand that it costs to go the first year. Other students at the top of the list, they offered as much as $32,000 over 8 years. Those were their merit awards that they offered just based on the application. Now they have other programs, honors programs, and there's departmental awards that you can get beyond this, but this is kind of like the basic based on the application. At Tuskegee, which is the school my son was highly interested in going to, we learned that they actually published a list, and if you fell within this certain criteria, you got this award that was listed on the website. So looking at if you had the GPA and the SAT score that fell in that criteria, then the award was listed there, which set a target. It helped you kind of figure out what SAT you needed. You could work toward that throughout the year if you saw it early. In this one, even if you didn't have that SAT at the beginning, you still had chances to qualify through the year as long as the money was available. So that was important with merit money. At Texas A&M, it's very cut and dry. It's not nearly as lucrative as like Tuskegee or North Carolina A&T, but they do publish, their merit awards on their website. Prairie View does as well. So you can kind of see here what this looks like. One thing that I would encourage parents to do is when you're looking at schools, and my wife, like I said, went to Baylor and I went to Texas A&M, and we were kind of interested in our students following our footsteps. But along the way, when we started looking at the cost and the ability to get the top scholarships, we thought, okay, we want our students to go to where they're going to be the most successful. And if you guys remember, if you think back to when they were in kindergarten through today, if you were been in the same district, it largely has not changed where you are positioned relative to the rest of the class. I noticed that it was very, very one-to-one ratio in Garland when from my son's kindergarten and first grade years up through who was valedictorian. I mean, it was almost very predictable. But just notice this, people, and so you want to go where you kind of fit in that top third. Malcolm Gladwell has a book, David and Goliath, where he talks about it's better to graduate in the top third of, a lesser school than the bottom third of the flagship institution or an Ivy League. So if it's better to graduate in the top third at Sam Houston State than the bottom at Texas A&M, because in life, they ultimately end up doing better. Statistics, and that's something that he found back in his studies. So I would say, think about that when you're picking schools. This is for the juniors and seniors. The juniors and sophomores. The seniors, you might have already decided and be down that path a little bit farther right now. Okay, the next awards are the departmental awards. These are, you've decided to go to this university and you're going to be majoring in a certain academic discipline, and that department has money available to attract and keep or retain top students. So if you're a student in the business department, maybe some very wealthy alumni has given some money that the department has some discretion over, and they can hand it out to someone that they really want to attract them from going to their nearest competitor. So if you're looking at Texas A&M versus Texas, and the business school at A&M is going to give you a little bit more money than Texas is, because the prestige at Texas doesn't require them to offer as much money. So the department at A&M may decide to go and push a little harder to get the students in. That's where that departmental discretionary money is used. And for agriculture, the USDA gives a lot of money to most public schools to use in this way. So but the key to getting this is to having the department know who you are. And you can do this by getting on Zoom calls with professors or the dean, or attending their workshops where they're talking about their programs. But you want to, whatever you do, you want to make sure that you leave an impression so that somebody knows your name. Some other soft things that we did was my son and daughter had LinkedIn accounts where we reached out and met professors on LinkedIn so that they could kind of learn about the student and know something about who's coming into the class before. So then later on, when they're having departmental meetings where they're talking about students, they said, "Oh, I've seen Brian Robinson before. Oh, he looks like a really good candidate. Let's make sure that we get him." Use those kind of tools to help make sure that you get it. So you can get on departmental Zoom calls. You can try to get on one-on-ones with teachers so that you can meet someone in the department and find out what the flow of the academic degree plan is like, as well as, like I said, using the professional social media. Now, this is not where the kids get on and play. This is where you're putting your best foot forward and talking about what your goals are and what you've done to help boost yourself get there. But just like the merit money, this money runs out also. This is not a limitless supply. So you want to start as early as possible with the departments knowing who you are. Okay, then there's outside scholarships. And when in our experience, we kind of categorize that into two different categories. One, the large national foundation scholarships like the Gates Scholarship, Jackie Robinson, heard of Burger King and Coca-Cola. There are lots of different foundations out there. I've listed some up, just a few of them out there. There's the Thurgood Marshall Foundation that has a number of scholarships, including our fraternity brother, Roland Martin, who just launched a collaboration with McDonald's to give $15,000 to 7 college juniors and seniors. That's something to also know. This applies to both those in high school looking to go to college and those in college looking to keep the money to make sure they put on the diploma in 4 years. So there's also the large multi-year endowments. There's national competitions. The earlier you start on this, the better, because this money, these usually have early deadlines because they have long interview process and thousands of applications. They're usually going to ask for that SAR, that student aid report, which was a function of the FAFSA that you guys filled out back in October. On that, they're going to be looking at the EFC, the expected family contribution. And if it gets down to it, you want that number to be as low as possible. Also, local or civic organizations like the Lions Club, the Rotary, Links, things like places like that are also a great source of outside scholarships. Those applications become available in the spring, and that's the focus of tonight's presentation, because they're getting ready to start publishing their applications this month. And you'll see them rolling out and becoming due anywhere from February through maybe the end of March, early April, and they'll be awarding in May at your awards program. We'll talk about scholarship portals where you can go and find other scholarships. And then the thing about this is most of these awards are one-year awards. So, and even that merit award, some of those merit awards are one-year awards. So once you get in, you might get your first year covered, but then what happens in your second, third, and fourth year? That's where you've got to keep planning. And that's why all of this preparation early on comes in very handy. There are also full ride scholarships. I'll be honest, right now, most of those are probably in their final stages, and they're getting ready to make offers because they got to, if the student doesn't accept, they got to be able to go to the next student to offer. So right now, that's kind of a lock for the seniors. Juniors, you should be looking at that and applying for these in October, September, October, maybe November. And sophomores, keep that in mind as well. But there are lots of ways to get to this full ride too. So sometimes it comes as a single award from a university or honors department or something. But sometimes you can build your own, and that's what we want to help you tonight, is to put together enough small scholarships so that you can get the first year covered. And if you keep that same process up, you can cover each year going forward. But it does take a lot of work up front, and I'm going to show you that work that you need to do up front, and then you'll find as you get everything down, it's going to taper off and become really easy to apply for scholarships. But like I said, you want to pay attention to the deadlines and because a lot of this stuff is going to go by early on full rides. Okay, so tonight's presentation mainly about the outside scholarships, how to win. And what I'm going to do now is talk about how my son and I started this process in the spring of 2019. Like I said before, it's January right now. At this point in 2019, he told me he had applied to scholarships, but I honestly do not believe it. You know, a lot of times we depend on the student and the counselor to kind of work together and go find some money to go to school. That's a risky strategy, parents, because think about it this way. Every dollar they win is a dollar you don't spend. So whose money is it anyway? That's what I thought it started thinking about this time in 2019. This is my money, because if he doesn't win it, I'm going to have to pay it. And I had some of it, but I didn't have all of it for both of them. And so that's when I was worried about the student loans. So this is the process that we went through. My son, very private person. He is not going to let me see his email, which is fine with me. I don't know what's in it. But what he came back with, he said, Dad, we're going to have a joint email. He and I share a name, so it was kind of easy for us to do it. But we're going to have a joint email. He made a Google account. And so that eliminated the stress of, did you check your email? Because I know a lot of parents are going to have to ask their students that, because a lot of this stuff is done by email. The awards, the applications, everything is being done. And so you don't want to have to keep doing that. So if you guys create a joint account that you guys both have access to it, both put it on your phones, both put it on your computers so that you can see everything. We used Google, which was great because it gave the repository for storing files. And so when we started talking about those files, resume, transcripts, both high school transcripts, and if you're doing dual credit, you want to get transcripts from both. You want to document your community service, you can do it on a spreadsheet. You can keep your SAR reports and test scores from College Board and ACT. Recommendations, we're going to spend a little time on that, talking a little bit more, but you want to have all this, building your toolbox so that you're going to be successful. Build it early so that it's going to be tough early, but it'll be easier later on, because once you've got everything assembled, putting these applications together becomes really simple. Acceptance letters. By now, the seniors should have an acceptance letter to somewhere, hopefully. If you don't, you need to get one. But you need an acceptance letter because a lot of the local scholarships are going to ask, have you been accepted to a school and where is it? And also that added bonus is that LinkedIn profile that you can use to kind of help network so people can see who you are. All right, so getting down into it. Now I know this is hard to look at or hard to read. This screen is showing a glimpse into his portal where in Google, where we were keeping all of this information that we talked about. You'll see we have folders for essays, transcripts, resumes, recommendation letters. We were keeping it all in one central location that we both had access to, so that I could go and pull information together for an application. He could do the same thing. Now, the resume. Okay, so if you don't have one right now, you need to have a resume as quickly as possible. That would be a thing to do tonight if you don't have one and you're a senior. If you're a junior too, you need to have one. But it should have your contact information, a profile talking about what your goals are, things that demonstrate your experience. Now, this doesn't have to be a work resume. It doesn't have to be work experience if you have never had a job. It could be community service related, or work you've done at your church, or things you've done in your neighborhood, or experiences that you've had by traveling or participating in sports. You can talk about that and what you did. Also, awards. The funny thing about it is people like to give awards to people that get awards. It's funny because once you start getting them, they kind of start piling up a little bit easier, because this is a psychological thing. I think people want to give awards to people who are awardable. You want to talk about your education, where you are, if your statistics, if put the best foot forward on that. Talk about your activities, the things that you're involved in high school. I'll show evidence of leadership. If you got volunteer activity and you got work experience, then include the volunteer activity as well. And also include references. Now, oddly, these references most likely are going to be the same people that write recommendations. So they'll be able to see what that person has to say and combine with the fact that that's one of your references. On the experience part, my children had jobs, and I'll show you their resumes. My children had jobs. We didn't demand it of them, but they wanted to work because we didn't give money for grades, or we didn't give money for anything. We kept our money. So if they wanted money, they had to go get a job for it. But they went and got jobs in disciplines that they were interested in and that the school was kind of helping them prepare for. Fortunately for them, they had a career and technology department that kind of helped prepare them for jobs, and then they got jobs based on that preparation that they got. But this is just kind of giving a glimpse of the resumes that they had and what they put together. My daughter, she's the super achiever, very neurotic, probably just about every little thing about being the number one person of this and that. And my son is a little bit more laid back. He works extremely hard and all the time, and to the point that he was leaving school during the senior year to go work, which we had to put a stop to. But you can see that, and that kind of reflected in how their performance ended up. But also both of them did outstanding in the end. Recommendation letters. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to go out and ask for 6 recommendation letters. You need a minimum of 3, but you need to ask for 6. Now, this is January, so it's going to be tough because teachers are just now getting back into the classroom, and there's a lot of stuff with the COVID and all the stuff that's going on. So it's going to be hard to get the teachers' mind share. That's why providing them the resume is going to make it a whole lot easier for them to write their recommendation letter, because they can kind of just regurgitate things that they've seen on the resume. You want to tell them the requirements, what they need to have in the letter. One key thing to do is to get a recommendation letter from a community member. That was one of the things that we came up about 25% of the time. They wanted somebody from the community, somebody outside of school. And it's not automatically intuitive to ask someone outside of school, because this is all kind of school related stuff. I would encourage you to get one early, as early as you can, because it's going to be important and people are going to ask for it. Sources for recommendation letters. Of course, your counselor is a must. Your pastor would be a good one. Teachers are great, but it's hard to get to them sometimes. Like I said, the community members, also your employer, or if you've been participating in sports outside of school or in school even, get your coach. But here's a pro tip for this. Get somebody who can write well, because you want their letter is also going to be a reflection of you. And so when the committee is looking at the recommendation letter and they can't read it, or they think poorly of the person of the writing, they may think poorly of you. So you want to make sure that that letter is on point, just like your application. Okay, essays. Now, the essay is typically the part that inhibits people from applying to scholarships. It's the toughest thing to get done because it's the most time consuming. Get it done. I would say, if you can, start with like a personal statement of your goals, just a general letter of what your goals are, what you've done toward those goals so far, what you want to do as a result of achieving those goals, what you hope to accomplish. Put that into an essay, a one-pager. You'll be able to use data, those sentences or those paragraphs from that in the future when you're writing essays for a competition. But when you're doing the competition, or when you're writing the essays, make sure you pay attention to the grammar and the spelling. The format is important. I always had my children start with an outline, and then because I wasn't the most creative person, I resorted back to the way I was taught to write the 3-part essay. And I think the parents and older people on here will probably know this: introduction, the 3 supporting paragraphs, and the conclusion, and you're out. Now the teachers want to argue with you and make you get creative and write all kinds of special ways. I argued with our teachers through the district pretty much their whole career about this, because I think this is the way to do it, and they think this is not creative. But if you can write that way, do it. But if you want to get it done quick, this will help you, because if you can think of your answer and 3 reasons why that's your answer, you can write an essay with it. The important thing here, though, is to get a team of reviewers and editors to look at your essay. We had cousins, aunts, grandparents. I didn't have any employees, but we had a lot of people involved in looking at these essays, because you don't want to inundate somebody with 20 essays to look at. If you can give one a couple, then they may just knock them out for you and send them back, and then they're done. and you're not worrying them to death about it. But it's very beneficial. Sometimes you'll get that special person who will even just rewrite your essay and make a killer book, that goes off and wins several scholarships. But that was how we approached the essays. As a result, we ended up with probably about maybe 30 or 40 essays, and they were kind of all different renditions of the same thing. If you'll notice that the questions kind of are similar, or you can use text from one essay and another. And so it's not really difficult to write an essay. And then once you've got a strong database of essays, you may find that the question actually did duplicate, and you can just pull it out there and send the application in. Parents might be able to do that. Okay, so as a result of that strategy, my son, this is like I said, he ended up with about, I think maybe 30 to 40 different essays of different things that he had written or been edited for him. And so here's what they look like on the in that database that we've been working on. Okay, now some scholarships are going to require interviews. If you've been called for the interview, you know that you're in the running for the money. And so it's important to be prepared to go into this. You want to let your personality show. You want to dress appropriately. You want to practice. That's the most important thing, is to practice. You want to use, if most of these are going to be like Zoom or online interviews now. So use appropriate backgrounds. We don't need to see your bed, and whether it's made or not. We don't need to see your bedroom. I wouldn't want anybody seeing my kid's bedroom anyway, but make sure you get a neutral background. If you can't use a virtual one, make sure you're in an area where it's very bland and generic in the background. As students, as you're doing this, don't use filler words like I keep saying. Don't use those filler words. Don't use slang. Stay away from acronyms, because they can hurt you if the person you're talking to doesn't understand what you're talking about. Make eye contact. It's difficult for me because I'm looking at my slides, but I need to be looking at the camera. When you're doing an interview, look at the camera. And then here's one of the most important things that you can do at the end of an interview. And this is in whatever you're interviewing for. Ask for what it is you want. Is there any reason why I wouldn't be your top candidate for this scholarship tonight? Is there anything else I can do to help prove myself? Ask for it. They may not give you the answer, but it's a psychological thing. What you want is for them to pause and think. And when that happens, the memory of you is baking in, because they've had you on your toes asking you questions, but now you flipped it on them, and that you got them, and they're not offended. They shouldn't be unless you ask it crazy. And so they're going to think, it's like, oh, well, I don't know. And if they say yes, it's hard to go back and say no after you said yes. And so it's a good strategy for interviewing. And that goes for not only just the scholarship interviews. If you're going to be a salesperson, ask for the business. Look, a closed mouth does not get fed. So ask for it. If you're interviewing for whether it's $1,000 or the full ride scholarship, ask for it. It worked for my daughter. I can tell you that. She did an interview for her honors program scholarship. And she was telling us that when she asked for it, it was a panel interview, and the room got quiet. And the people looked at each other, and they kind of didn't know what to say. And then, one lady said, well, no, I don't know why you wouldn't get it. I guess you will get it. And she ended up getting it. And so it was a winning moment for her. But, you never know. And if they say no, and if they say that, yeah, they got a reason that there's somebody better than you, then you already know up front, and that wasn't going to change. So, during the interview, let your personality show. Be honest. Check back for understanding. Make sure you're answering their questions that they're asking. Like I said, avoid the acronyms. A lot of times when you get into an industry and you're talking about schools and you're talking about different places where you've been, and you don't want them to get a misunderstanding about what you're communicating. So try to avoid that. Here's a list of some common interview questions that we ran into over the process. This presentation is going to be recorded, so you can come back to it if you don't get it, or you can try to take a screenshot right now. But this is just a sampling of a lot of them. And like I said, usually at the end, they're going to ask you, is there anything that you have, any questions that you have at the end of the interview? And that's when you go and ask for the money, or ask for the business, or whatever it is they're offering. Okay. Scholarship sources. And so this is where you go to find scholarships. The number one area to go and look for scholarships is going to be your counselor's office. Okay. In GISD, they use a program called, and that's Garland ISD. They use a program called Naviance. Naviance is a tool where the whole district is able to put in scholarships that are being offered around the community. It's a great tool because parents can log into it, students can log into it, and we can see what's out there. And it's a great source of local stuff that people are trying to offer money to good students. Beyond that, though, and this, the other good part about this is that you're not dependent on going into the counselor's office. And I know some students just aren't comfortable going into the counselor's office. I get that. I understand. I was one of those who wasn't really kind of shy away from the upper muckety mucks in the office. So, this puts it on the bottom level, put the cookies on the bottom shelf, as my pastor says, so that anybody can feed on it. And that's what Naviance does. So if your district has something like that, find it. If not, you got to hit that counselor's office. Normally in the counselor's office, they're on the bulletin board or sitting on a coffee table, or you may have to ask the secretary at the front desk, where the scholarships are, but you got to get in there and get them if they're not being put in a public place. Beyond that, scholarship sources, there are a number of places on the web. And these sites this is really one of the great reasons or great byproducts of having that joint email account that really wasn't either one of ours private account, because this generates a lot of spam. Scholarships.com, Unigo, Scholly, Scholarship, these are great places, but they email you a lot. Now you can manage that by going into those websites and setting up a profile, and it becomes kind of like online dating. Not that I know much about it, because I've been married almost 25 years, but online dating where you can go and put your profile up and what you're like, what you have to offer, and then they can match scholarships to what your profile says. So we did get scholarships off of this. By the way, FastWeb, I know we won scholarships off of that because they matched a specific scholarship to what my son was looking for. The Charles Shelton scholarship, I remember that. Was a great thing. And there were others that, he was really close for. Maybe he didn't win, but at least he went through the process of applying, which helped him build a stronger application for future stuff. But we still get emails to this day. Both of them do get emails to this day with various scholarships. Now we need to update the profile to show that they're in college, because they're still sending us the high school senior stuff, but we're still getting them. Beyond that, there are foundations out there that have scholarships. The College Board, believe it or not, where the people that do the SAT, they have a scholarship database. The United Negro College Fund, which is an excellent tool and place to apply. And I'd say maybe they probably have about maybe 50 scholarships up right now. There's some of these other websites. The Alpha Kappa Alpha Education Advancement Foundation, that's a $25 million endowment. And last year they gave away $650,000 in scholarships across the country. So I would recommend getting the profile in there, logging in and seeing what they have to offer. It's like the Thurgood Marshall Foundation as well. Now, for those students that are doing dual credit programs, the Phi Theta Kappa Honor Society has an excellent database. Now, you have to apply and qualify to get into that organization, and you have to have at least 30 credits in order to get it. And this is through your community college. But once you get in, you get access to all of their scholarships. And primarily, they're set up for people that are transferring from junior college to four-year university. But if you've got 30 hours, then you're basically in that category and you can apply. So good source of scholarships there. So all in total, you're going to be able to find hundreds of scholarships out there to apply for. And this can go on even after you start your college career. In your freshman, sophomore, and junior year, you should continue applying because you can continue winning. Okay, now something that's specific that's coming up, and I'm kind of rushing because we're trying to do this in an hour. So I got two specific scholarships that I really love and would like for everyone to consider. The first one is the USDA Scholar, which is the one that my son has at Prairie View A&M. This is really a recruiting program for the Department of Agriculture, but it's linked to the 1890 HBCU land grant universities. You can see the list: Alabama A&M, Alcorn, Delaware State, Florida A&M, NCAT, Prairie View, Southern, Tuskegee, University of Arkansas Pine Bluff. These are the 1890s, and there are others here. Other 1890 schools that came in on the Morrill Land Grant in 1890, as opposed to the white schools who came in the 1860s. Scholarship program is set up. The application is due February 15th. And this is a full ride scholarship, toothpaste, tissue, underwear, and everything else. I loved it. They took us in like he was a D1 athlete, and when they took him into Prairie View, and so it is a very good program and it has a job. It includes the summer internship. You're obligated to work for the government for every year you get the scholarship. But the good thing about it is you got a job coming out of school, so which is great. And so unless you're planning to go to professional school, and then they will allow you to do that as well. The requirements: 3.0 GPA, I think like 1,000 or maybe 1050 on the SAT. But it's very attainable. But the thing about this is you want to have a desire to work in the USDA. And that doesn't mean that you're into agriculture, because they need marketing people, they need journalists, they need MIS people, they need people in business. All of those degrees can do it, but you apply through the agricultural department. And so they're looking for great students to be great employees of the United States government, because of the USDA, because what they found is 70% of their employees are eligible for retirement, and they're trying to replenish their employment base. This is one of their tools. And so if you can get a free college education with it, all the better. But the deadline next month. Pro tip on this: in your essay or in somewhere in there, mention that you actually do want to work for the USDA. That will perk up the ears of the evaluators. Okay, the second one is the Dr. Levi Watkins Jr. Institute at Tennessee State. This scholarship is due March 22nd. It is for students that are interested in becoming doctors. This is an advanced program, a 3-year program for a physical science like biology or chemistry, or one of the physical sciences that's leading you to go to med school at Meharry. The great news is it sounds like it's going to have automatic admission into Meharry, and all your undergraduate education is taken care of. This was a new scholarship last year, and if I remember correctly, they were pretty much begging for African American males to apply for this scholarship well beyond the due date. I remember because the application kept coming out, and I kept saying I thought it was already due, and but they kept saying that they were looking for more African American males to apply. You need to be a good student, 28 on the SAT, 310 on the SAT, and 28 on the ACT. There's an interview involved. They're looking for a 3.5 GPA, and of course acceptance into Tennessee State. But if you're looking to go to med school, this is a great way to get that undergraduate degree taken care of, because the cost of med school is high, and so you want to graduate with as little debt as possible. Beyond that, okay, other scholarships, other things that we found, and some of these we won here in the local area. The Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. Those of us in Dallas, and if you're in the district represented by Eddie Bernice Johnson, Colin Allred, Mark Vesey, then you're eligible for one of these Congressional Black Caucus scholarships. You have to Google it. It's the CBC Foundation, or the website's there. Each congressperson has about $10,000 that they can award, and it's all done out of DC now. So you're going to apply. There'll be a selection panel there in DC that takes care of it, and then you get awarded. But the fact is, because you're being represented by a member of the CBC, you're eligible. And those of you from around the country, if you're in areas represented by a member of the CBC, you'll be eligible also. Beyond that, the Texas Black Caucus has a foundation scholarship that comes out in April, usually later on in the semester. The spring semester is when we've seen it. The Negro Business Professional Women had a great scholarship. My daughter won. The Lynx, Professional Achievers, Jack and Jill. Now, Jack and Jill of America, while it's a private organization, the scholarships are offered to the public. So you can apply for those. You'll find it, hopefully you'll see it in Navient or the counselor's office or somewhere in a public place. The Jack Kent Cook Foundation is an excellent scholarship for those students who are going to school in Texas. It's pretty much a full ride scholarship. I think it's about $40,000 a year. I think up to $40,000 a year is what they're offering, if I remember correctly. In addition to that, there are tons of groups on Facebook and social media, Twitter, places where you can apply for scholarships or hear about scholarships to apply for. I encourage you to get on those sources and get in the know and ask questions, because people are very helpful in that community about helping people find scholarships, because none of us want to pay. Those of you in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, Alpha Phi Alpha is the oldest Black Greek letter organization founded for African-American men, or founded for African-Americans, period, for college graduates. But there are 8 other organizations that all offer scholarships, and those other organizations have multiple chapters throughout the DFW areas. I listed as many of them as I could here, but I do remember one in particular, the Delta Sigma Theta, the North Dallas Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta, gave away 25 $1,000 scholarships to my daughter and the other people in her cohort, which I thought was impressive. And so if all those chapters are giving away that kind of money, which they may not be, but they may, that's going to be a lot of money given away in this region. The ladies of Alpha Kappa Alpha, like I said about their EAF endowment or foundation, was huge, but they also have local endowments here in Dallas, and each one of these chapters usually have an endowment that gives away tens of thousands of dollars as well. These are the ones where you just got to keep, once you've built your database of essays and resumes and recommendation letters and transcripts and everything, this is just, you're putting together PDF documents with all the stuff. They're all asking for the same stuff and sending it out. And if you can win, one from each one of these, you're going to come away with probably about $20,000 if you could just get one from each one. So I strongly encourage you to apply. I'm going to work with Brother Shaw and see if we can get some of these organizations to tell us more about what they're offering and what their awards and application deadlines are going to be coming up in the future here. All right, so that gives us the tracking. Okay, so as we started locating scholarships through the emails that we were getting and the different search engines and working with Navient, we were putting all the scholarships into a database, into a spreadsheet on Google. And we tracked the deadline that it was due, the scholarship's name, of course, the amount of money. Sometimes sometimes you don't know. But the important thing is what the essay was about and how much are you going to have to contribute to this essay, or do we have it already? This is how we tracked all our scholarships throughout the spring semester. And this is the other part. My son did not apply to his first scholarship that I knew of until February 28th. And so, which is really late. But he still was able to accomplish big things. I'm going to show his results here in a moment. He was still able to accomplish big things because of the system that we put together to manage it. So we tracked them here. And so all of them went on, they were white. And as we applied for them, we turned them green. If he won, we turned it blue. If we lost, we turned it red. Some of them stayed white because some of them we didn't apply. Some of them stayed green because we never heard. And that's going to happen. And that's okay, because this is a numbers game. You want to get as many applications out there as possible, because that increases your chance of winning. Okay, so looking at the results. And my son has told me it's okay to share this data. He's 3 years old anyway, and he's actually particularly proud of this too, which I am too, because it is very good performance. You can see his stats listed here. He's mostly proud of his ranking of 105 out of 500 students, which shows that he's a top student, but not at the tip top. But he's one of the few that has a full ride scholarship, and he definitely does not let that go unknown amongst our family members and friends. But you can see what he had. And so as a result of working the process, he was able to get the USDA scholarship, which is about at Prairie View, as an in-state student, was valued at just about $100,000. But then he also got all these other individual awards, and some of them he had to return and that are not listed here. For instance, like the Tuskegee Alumni Association. I'm not sure if they're on here or not, but he actually had to return that scholarship because he didn't go to Tuskegee, but they had given him a nice scholarship as well. So it was a little bit more than this that he ultimately ended up getting. But it was fantastic performance on the scholarship results list. And it was because of, he was a great student, but beyond that, he was a hard worker. And his resume showed that he was somebody who was employable, that people were able to work with. He showed up to work on time. He was going to be a good employee. And I think that's one of the reasons why he did so well in the long haul. And one thing people have asked me over and over, like what this information was, what the stats were really like, what it really takes to get a full ride scholarship. And so that's what he had. Our daughter, a little bit different. She goes to North Carolina A&T. She's in the honors program. She was the one that's always chasing. And my wife and I kind of joke because she's always out to beat him. That's like her goal since she's been born. It seems like she's always chasing him. And so it's about how did I do compared to Hamilton is what she says. And so you can see what her performance was. It was great. She actually got a full ride at North Carolina A&T and at Tuskegee. Tuskegee put theirs together through a combination of merit award and departmental award, and it came in later, which by then she had fallen in love with A&T. So they came in just too late. But you can see what her results were as well. So, it was about a little bit less than $300,000 in total, but you got to take Tuskegee out because she couldn't go to two schools at once. But you can see what all the results were for her. Darn, I think that's it. I tried to get it under an hour. We got 10 minutes left, look like. Ready for Q&A?
Yes, sir. Ready for Q&A. And thank you, Brother Robinson. That was a great presentation. And you're not someone who works in the financial aid office. You're not someone who works in academics. You're just a dad who wanted to save some money and wanted to get his kids the best education possible.
That's right.
And that's what I want to, if nothing else, that's what I want people to leave with. You don't have to be a professional in financial aid to help your children to get to where they need to go.
I know very little about financial aid.
So we are ready for questions. If there are questions, if you have a question, please enter it in the chat so that we can see what you're asking, and we will do our best to answer these questions. And if we run out of time, we will have a follow-up session just to address the questions if we run out of time today. So, Brother Robinson, we have a question here from Ms. Newton. She asked, is there going to be scholarship information? Is there going to be scholarship information that's beneficial to college freshmen? Her daughter is in her first year at an HBCU.
Absolutely. You can run the same program. In fact, we're still doing, my daughter, who's intending to go to vet school in the next 3 years, she's still applying. We're still using the same data to apply for scholarships. The sources are a little bit different, but not largely different, because you can go to the counselor's office or public bulletin boards on campus where you can find scholarships. But also those databases that I mentioned, like FastWeb and Scholarly and Scholarship Owl, those have scholarships for freshmen, sophomores, and juniors in college as well. And like I also mentioned that Roland Martin has that scholarship for the juniors and seniors to complete college, $15,000 for, I think 7 students are going to win. He just announced this week. So yes, definitely information out there. And I would use the same process. And parents, just because you got the first year paid, you may not have the rest of it paid for sure. So keep the process up. The more you apply, the more you're going to win.
Thank you. Excellent question coming from Christy Light. Does your parent have to be in a fraternity or sorority in order to apply for the fraternity and sorority scholarships?
Absolutely not. No. In fact, we didn't apply for my son did not apply for the Phi Alpha scholarships at all. We only applied for the other Divine Nine organizations. My daughter, she wanted everything, so she went for all of them. But no, you do not have to be a member. The parent does not have to be a member to apply for them. In fact, we exist to uplift the community. So our purpose is to be out there serving you, those who are not in the Divine Nine, and those who are, because we're serving the entire community.
Brother Robinson, on that note, do you mind sharing your son's experience with the Delta Sigma Theta scholarship? there was an interesting spin that happened with something interesting happened with him applying for the Delta Sigma Theta
Yes.
scholarship.
Well, okay, Darwin, I was telling you about it. It was the Zetas, to be honest. Okay, so at the awards program, we sat down with them, and they were telling us kind of about the process they went through to get the awards. He was the only African American. He was only male to apply, and they were on it, And once they found out that he could put the sentence together in the interview, it was over. And so the funny thing was, the girls that won were fantastic. I mean, through the move, 4.0 and beyond, and all of that. And my son was there too, with his 3.5, and he was happy with it because we were winning, and they gave us. In fact, they gave him the most money. I think those other girls got like $1,000 scholarships, and he got $1,500. So we were like, we'll take it. Absolutely. So that's the other thing. African American males, apply for the scholarships. People are looking for y'all. I would say apply to every scholarship, whether it's fraternity or sorority, unless they tell you it's only for girls or it's only for boys. So then don't do it. But yeah, I definitely do it. And sometimes you will find that you're the only one that applied. And like in that case with Zeta Phi Beta, they told him he was the only African American male that applied for their scholarship, and they were happy to award him.
Thank you for sharing that, and hopefully I didn't offend any members of Delta Sigma Theta. In our
conversation, like I said, they gave away $1,000. That was a huge amount of money. I think that was probably the largest presentation we've been to, where as far as a local organization giving away scholarships. There was a lot of money given.
That is an impressive amount.
Mm-hmm.
Please feel free to enter your questions. When is the earliest students and parents can start applying for these scholarships?
Okay, so there are different types of scholarships that you can apply for. Essay contest and speaking contest and things that you can apply that will award a scholarship that you can do probably as early as kindergarten. But as far as these type of scholarships that we've been talking about, these are mostly senior year scholarships, but you can apply for stuff. You can find stuff that's still available for juniors, sophomores, and freshmen. But the most important thing that juniors, sophomores, and especially freshmen can do is build the content that's going into the resume. That's where I would put the focus, is to building an impressive list of accomplishments, awards, work experiences, definitely a community service log, so that you have that stuff prepared and it's easily attained when it's time to apply for scholarships.
Excellent. Well, Brother Robinson, if my child has a full ride and there's extra scholarship money, what happens to the extra money?
Okay, we found ourselves in this position. Now, the answer is it depends on the university that you're going to. Some schools have a practice called displacement, where they will reduce their full ride. If it's through the university, they'll reduce their full ride scholarship by the amount of money that you've been awarded so that it nets out. Some schools do that. A lot of private schools typically do that. But if you're going to a public school, then it may be based on how much the budget is for what they budget for a student to go there. So if they'll let you get some of the gap between what it actually costs you and what they actually budget, because normally what they budget is much more than what it actually really costs. And so they'll let you fill in that gap. And then sometimes if you work with the financial aid counselors and you work with your scholarship benefactors, you can work it so that you get all of it back. And that's when you got to have a strategy of staggering the money when it comes in, pushing it out to next semester or the next year, working to kind of finesse it so that it doesn't all come into one big lump sum, because they may give you $3,000, $5,000 overpayments, but they're not going to give you a $15,000 overpayment. So you got to manage it.
All right. Next question. My child has an excellent school counselor. Is it okay that I rely only on the counselor?
Well, okay. I look at it this way. Counselors are, they're human. And so, they've got thousands or hundreds of students that they're working with. And a lot of times when it's senior year, they're trying to get them to just graduate. They may not have time to put this kind of focus on working with your child. And at the end of the day, do you want to put your financial future in the hands of the counselor, or do you want to run it yourself? And so I'll let you be the answer to that question.
All right. Is there another question? All right. It looks like, Brother Robinson, you have presented a wonderful presentation that covered so many different avenues. And I want to thank you for opening up and sharing your experience and giving our viewers something to take home and something that they can put into place. Thank you so much for that. This has been an extremely informative program, and I want to thank the viewers. And again, this will be stored on our YouTube, Dallas Alphas TV. It'll also be in the virtual setting, and just want to commend you and our viewers. And again, we'll be posting it. I'm sorry, I'm looking at it. We'll be posting this video on YouTube. So as we wrap up, it's just, go to high school, go to college. Everyone gets excited when their child gets accepted into college, and that is something to be celebrating. And then the bills come in, and it's like, oh, so how do we do this? How do we do this? Or in your words, every dollar awarded is a dollar that you don't have to spend. And that's so perfectly said. Because like you said, you've put some money back, but if you can win some money, then the money that you've put back can be put somewhere else. And that's the goal. That's the goal, is to do the best we can and to get our children in a better place. And I'm so thankful for you and grateful for this platform. Again, we are representing Alpha Phi Alpha, the Alpha Sigma Lambda Chapter of our great fraternity, where we have a program, Go to High School, Go to College. It's been in place since 1922. The methods have changed, but the focus remains the same: getting young people through high school, through college, and elevating their status in life. With that said, I wish you all a good night. And again, this video will be held for your viewing. Go back and review it, take notes on it, share it with your friends and relatives. The resources are extremely helpful. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night.
Peace.